Airplanes shrink the world, reuniting loved ones and fueling the engines of global commerce. Every single day, millions of people put their faith in pilots, crews, and the technology that keeps them aloft, a trust earned by an extraordinary safety record. Thanks to decades of relentless innovation and strict oversight, flying remains one of the safest ways to travel. Each flight is a carefully choreographed operation, with layers of checks and safeguards. From the drawing board to the cockpit, every aspect is examined with safety in mind. Air India, the nation's flagship carrier, stands as a symbol of pride and a lifeline for millions abroad. Like all major airlines, Air India operates under the watchful eye of international safety regulations. These rules govern everything, from how planes are maintained to how long pilots can fly, all to make sure every journey ends safely. But when that safety net fails, the shockwaves are felt across the globe. The aviation world investigates every incident, big or small. Black boxes are recovered, wreckage is studied, and data is poured over, not to assign blame, but to uncover the truth. What happened? And more importantly, how can we make sure it never happens again? This relentless drive for answers has sparked remarkable advances in aviation safety. Yet despite every precaution, tragedy can still strike. A plane crash is never just a news story. It's a deeply personal loss. The crash of Air India Express Flight 812 in Mangalore is one such heartbreaking event. It's a tale of human mistakes and fateful choices, and it offers vital lessons for the entire aviation community. Lessons that must always be remembered. The system is built to learn from its darkest hours, but sometimes the price of progress is unbearably steep. On the night of May 22, 2010, Air India Express Flight 812 was set for what should have been a typical journey from Dubai to Mangalore. For the 160 passengers and 6 crew members, it felt like just another flight. Many were Indian expatriates eager to return home. The plane itself, a Boeing 737-800, was modern and in excellent condition. The takeoff was smooth, and a sense of calm filled the cabin. Passengers settled into their seats, looking forward to landing in Mangalore. The route was familiar, one that pilots had flown countless times before. Everything was running perfectly. No technical issues were reported during the flight. As the aircraft neared Indian airspace, the crew began their preparations for landing. Mangalore Airport is unique, a tabletop runway perched high on a plateau, with steep drops at both ends. Landings here demand absolute precision. There's almost no margin for error. The flight was right on schedule, and air traffic control gave them the green light to land. The weather was manageable, just some light rain and haze, but visibility was good enough for a visual approach. The pilots could see the runway ahead. The final approach is always the most demanding part of any flight. Shifting from cruising altitude to a safe landing requires total concentration. For those on board Flight 812, the end of their journey was in sight. They were just minutes away from home. Everything felt perfectly normal. But in aviation, the ordinary can turn extraordinary in a heartbeat. At the controls of Flight 812 sat Captain Zlatko Glušica, a veteran Serbian aviator with years of experience. With more than 10,000 hours in the air, he knew the Boeing 737 inside and out. His partner in the cockpit, First Officer H.S. Ahluwalia, was still building his experience on this aircraft. On board were 160 passengers, mostly Indian nationals, families, children, and workers eager to return home. In Mangalore, loved ones waited anxiously for their arrival. The cabin buzzed with excitement and the hope of reunion. Outside, monsoon season brought hazy skies and a gentle drizzle. Nothing out of the ordinary. Visibility was well above the required minimums, and the tailwind posed no threat. Air traffic control cleared the pilots for a visual approach. The runway was clearly visible ahead. The cabin crew made their final checks, securing the cabin for landing. Passengers settled in, expecting nothing more than a routine touchdown. Both cockpit and cabin teams followed their well-rehearsed procedures. Everything pointed to a standard, uneventful arrival. No one sensed the looming danger. The weather was manageable. The crew was prepared. Yet, in aviation, even the most skilled professionals can face the unexpected in a split second. Every action, Every detail carries weight in the sky, and sometimes a single oversight can lead to disaster. The passengers and crew placed their faith in the system. That faith was about to be put to the ultimate test. As Flight 812 neared the runway, things quickly spiraled out of control. The plane was descending too fast and too high. The autopilot was switched off later than it should have been, leaving the captain to take over by hand. Instead of aborting the landing as protocol demanded, the captain chose to continue. The co-pilot's voice cut through the tension. "We don't have runway left." But his warnings fell on deaf ears. Investigators would later reveal the captain had been asleep for much of the journey, suffering from sleep inertia, leaving his mind clouded and slow to react. Despite a dangerously unstable approach, the captain forced the landing. The jet finally touched down more than 5,000 feet beyond the runway's start, leaving less than 3,000 feet to stop. On a slick tabletop runway, that was a recipe for disaster. Brakes screeched, thrust reversers roared, but it was already too late. The plane shot off the end, smashed through barriers, and tumbled down a steep slope. The wings tore open, fuel erupted in flames, and the fuselage shattered. Fire consumed the wreckage. For 166 souls, a routine flight turned into a nightmare. The last moments were a tragic sequence of misjudgments. The cockpit was full of warnings, none of them heeded. In aviation, skipping procedures can have deadly consequences. This disaster was the result of human error, a tragedy that should never have happened. Just after 6 a.m., disaster struck. The deafening blast jolted airport staff and nearby residents awake. Emergency crews raced to the scene, confronted by a blazing wreck deep within a gorge. The landscape was unforgiving, the flames relentless. Firefighters fought desperately, searching for any sign of life. Villagers quickly formed human chains, joining forces with rescuers to reach the crash site. Against all odds, 8 people were pulled from the wreckage alive, thrown clear before flames engulfed the fuselage. Their injuries were severe. Tragically, 1 would not survive. Ultimately, only 7 would make it through. The recovery was painstaking, slowed by mud and dense forest. Rescuers worked around the clock, retrieving victims from the blackened wreckage. In total, 158 lives were lost, including both pilots and all 4 cabin crew. The airport was shut down as investigators began their work. The nation grieved, united in mourning one of India's worst aviation tragedies. The catastrophe served as a sobering reminder of the dangers that come with air travel. The search for answers began right away, with India's DGCA teaming up with American specialists to get to the bottom of the crash. Investigators quickly recovered the black boxes and dove into their analysis. The data painted a clear picture. The aircraft approached too high and too fast, touching down much later than it should have. Audio from the cockpit revealed the captain was suffering from sleep inertia, while the co-pilot's warnings went unheeded. The final investigation report pointed to one main cause: the captain's decision not to abort the unstable landing. Fatigue clouded his judgment at a crucial moment. Investigators also found a serious breakdown in crew resource management. The steep hierarchy in the cockpit meant the co-pilot's valid concerns were brushed aside. The report noted the co-pilot could have spoken up more forcefully, but challenging a senior captain isn't easy for a junior officer. The recommendations were clear: improve fatigue management, enforce stricter duty hours, and strengthen CRM training. In the end, it wasn't a technical glitch or bad weather, it was human error at the worst possible time. The investigation made one thing certain: safety relies on teamwork and constant alertness. These lessons came at a high price. The Mangalore tragedy sent ripples through the aviation world. In its wake, airlines and regulators took decisive action, rolling out sweeping reforms. Crew resource management training was reinvented. Co-pilots were encouraged to speak up and challenge when needed. Cockpit hierarchies were leveled, making sure every crew member's voice counted. Stricter rules on pilot fatigue were introduced, with smarter scheduling and better training on the importance of rest. Controlled rest procedures were updated, ensuring pilots are sharp and ready for critical moments like landing. The disaster also spotlighted the dangers of tabletop airports, sparking demands for safety upgrades like EMAS beds at runway ends. Change didn't happen overnight, but the conversation around safety grew louder and more urgent. The biggest takeaway? Technology can alert us, but it's up to humans to heed the warnings and act. Every step forward in safety is a tribute to the 158 lives lost that day. By learning from heartbreak, we make air travel safer for everyone. The legacy of Flight 812 is a promise to stay vigilant, work as a team, and never let complacency take hold. This story stands as a lasting reminder. Safety in aviation is never just a routine. For every flight, we owe it to those we lost to keep striving for better, safer skies.